For many people, Richard Jobson will be best known as the lead singer of the Skids. But today, he's here to talk about his journey from broadcaster and journalist to photographer and filmmaker, particularly with his new film, Waylon's Song. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Richard Jobson.
Thank you very much, David, and thanks for having me as a speaker today. In essence, I just wanted to talk about how my thing happened and how it evolved, and really to bring it into the world of Adobe, how I've been using their tools for a long time in the small and very personal films that I've made. I started off in a punk group called the Skids in the east of Scotland when I was 15 years old, and we were voted very quickly the best punk band in Scotland, at which point in time my mother reminded me we were the only punk band in Scotland, so it wasn't such a flowery beginning. But we were fortunate that we did have some hit records very early on as young kids. But the most important part of that memory for me, which has got some kind of relation to what I'm going to be talking about today, is the fact that we had our own label. It was called No Bad. And No Bad in the east of Scotland vernacular kind of means cool. You know, it was No Bad Records. And we did our first record. We went into a recording studio. We could only afford 1 hour to be in there, so we literally got in, set our drums up, recorded 15 songs in an hour. Average length of about 1 minute, 20 seconds, of which probably one was okay and the rest were really dreadful. But it was the spirit. The spirit was that we wanted to do our own thing. We knew we didn't really like what was regarded as the establishment very much, and the way that the music industry had been controlled for a long time. We already, in our own somewhat naive way, understood the politics of that, and we didn't like it. So punk rock, when it happened, meant a lot to us because it gave us a spirit, a sense of our own identity, a sense of fearlessness, and things were to be challenged, and that stayed with me right through my career, through the various things that I've done, and I still feel that way. I still feel that inside there is the angry, slightly fearless 16-year-old, although when I look in the mirror, unfortunately, he's pissed off somewhere else. But that's life. My love of visual imagery and sound came from my older brother, who I had a very strong relationship with. His name was Francis. And we came from a mining village in the east of Scotland, which was very tough. And to be different in those kind of communities, other than the standard alpha male kind of macho character, you were really regarded as two things. You were either, you were mentally deranged or gay. And there was no middle ground for people. You know, the idea that you might like things like poetry or literature, it was very, very difficult. My oldest brother really went against the grain of all of that, and he became a Hare Krishna monk. So in the context of that environment, it was quite something. And he really listened to incredible music. Frank Zappa, Captain Beefheart, Lou Reed, David Bowie, right across the board. Really interesting stuff. Introduced me to the New York Dolls and a whole variety of really cool American music. And he also was deeply interested in cinema, but most importantly for me as a young guy, comics, and he introduced me to the world of Marvel. So very quickly, from the age of 5, 6, 7 onwards, I was obsessed with Captain America, Batman, of course, Spider-Man, and a whole array of other superheroes. So this kind of sense that the world was very graphic to me from a very early age, and even the movies that he used to sneak me into, like Clockwork Orange. In Scotland in those days, a matinee, if you bought a ticket, they didn't have people to check the ticket. So, I think we got in to see Clockwork Orange at 11 a.m. and we watched it 4 times. And that film really was an embodiment of that kind of graphic sensibility that had been growing. My brother, moved into a temple in Edinburgh, but I used to go there and meet him on a Saturday morning. and we would go down to the film house in Edinburgh to watch movies together, normally really violent movies. And this is a Hare Krishna monk. And during, there's a festival in Edinburgh called the Edinburgh Film Festival, which used to really get very big names. And I remember being with him, walking to, because he was a big fan of Don Siegel, the American director, who did a lot of those good Clint Eastwood films, like the Dirty Harry franchise, for example. And Clint was in town, and he was talking about a movie he had directed. I can't really remember which one. And Clint Eastwood is a really tall guy. He's about 6'4", 6'5", and he was wearing a Stetson and a really cool pinstripe suit. And he was walking up Lothian Road, surrounded by his people, you know, the PRs, marketing people, and of course the people from Warner Brothers who looked after him. And they were walking up the street with this huge guy in the middle. And my brother, who was in his Hare Krishna robes, I was in my punk gear with I had a black hair with a white stripe down it like a badger. He said, let's go and talk to him. And we did, you know, and I got a sense that, and he was great with us, I might add. Eastwood was fantastic. He was really interested in these two nutters that had appeared in front of him, who were quite clearly not dangerous. We just loved Don Siegel movies, and we knew more about Don Siegel than he did, I think. So it was kind of fun, and I was introduced to a whole world by him, which was captured in my music through the Skids. And you know, the thing at that time when we were in the Skids, it wasn't really possible to make very good videos. Our videos are truly terrible, really embarrassing narratives that are. So you know, we weren't allowed much say in it. And again, that's something that really sickened us. That kind of control was being pulled away from us. We had signed to Virgin Records by that time. So I was becoming very disaffected with that world and was always looking for something new. And I've tried quite a few things in between that, but really getting into the world of movies was always the thing that was, you know, at the forefront of my thoughts. So unfortunately for me, maybe fortunately for my career, if that doesn't sound too cynical, my brother, who obviously I had a very strong relationship with, was murdered. And now this is a thing that doesn't happen to people, you know, this is something that happens to people you see on the news, or this is something that happens to people you read about in the newspapers. It doesn't happen to you. Well, it happened to me. And suddenly your world gets turned upside down, and your kind of sense of focus and your sense of what the world means is thrown into kind of anarchy and chaos. So I decided to try and do something about that, because it was definitely having a strong adverse effect on the way I saw the world. And I created my first movie, which was called 16 Years of Alcohol, which is a kind of homage to somebody who was a fantastic influence on my life and the way I think about things, and his courage, I think, it stays with me. Because I don't really, when I make my films, for example, I meet other filmmakers and they go, how do you get on with critics? And I go, well, I don't really care. You know, you make the product and you make it because you really care about it. And you care about the story, and you care about the way you want to make the films, but do you care about how they're going to respond to it? Well, no. And that's something I think I really got from him, that kind of courage not to worry about, because the product will find its place, the art that you're making will find its groove. Don't worry about what other people think about it, especially the ones who are casting judgment on it. But actually, the critics were very kind to me on my first movie. I'm not sure they've been that kind to me since, but they were certainly kind at that moment in time. So, yeah, I had found my place. I mean, before that, I had been producing other people's films. And one of the things that kind of sickened me deep down was this kind of sense that the movies we were making were of a certain budget, and there was good money, like movies from Miramax, for example. But the wastage, I don't know if it's because I'm a frugal Scot, and that kind of weird reputation we have of being a little bit meaner than the rest of our cousins here in the UK, but I certainly didn't like the idea that money was being spent on the wrong things, maybe. So when I made my first movie, 16 Years of Alcohol, I had a really a tiny budget to make it. But I had the passion and I had the story. I think it's a very good thing to start when you're a director doing your first project, to start with a project that really means something big in your life. So you've got a passion that will drive it through against the extraordinary obstacles that will be put up in front of you. And of course, you're never going to be able to rely on a financial response to a crisis. You've got to be creative in your response to a crisis. So, you know, these things are all a great way to find your feet. For me personally, I've never wanted to leave that world. I love it there. I love the control. and I love being able to design my movies in that way, that there's a kind of passionate through line. I was going to show you just a little compilation, some of the things that I've done just to snap it together. Then I want to go on to talk about some of the other, the most recent movie I just made, which screened in Cannes last Saturday night and was made for really a derisory sum of money, but it's got a big, big heart, and it's a hyper-stylized film. I also want to kind of take you through this train of thought that this graphic sensibility didn't just come out of nowhere. It came from hanging out with this crazy brother of mine who was a Hare Krishna monk in his orange robes, and we're reading Marvel comics and listening to the MC5. There's a world that starts to fuse together in there, and that's certainly the world that's inspired my film. So let's have a little look at this compilation first of all. So nice romantic comedy stuff there.
Give me this.
So as I said, the kind of sense that I was trying to find something that was already rooted in the way I was thinking. And I hope you saw in that compilation a sense of a very expressionistic way of looking at characters, very monochromatic color choices, lots of backlighting, lots of silhouettes, all stuff that's, of course, born from, again, from comic books and graphic novels right up to the ability to rotoscope, which is one of those things that suddenly appeared in my life that was something you've been waiting for forever. You just didn't know what it was, and suddenly it's there in front of you. It's stuff that I really like dabbling with at a very early point in the array of Adobe tools that were available to me. So we really got involved with After Effects from a very early stage, started using it as an editing tool. Premiere to me at the time was a dog. It was really useless in those early days. And then we jumped ship to the arch enemy at Final Cut because it was just so much better. But After Effects was a joy. Of course, Photoshop was a joy. And then, weirdly enough, I've gone full circle because After Effects, Final Cut became a bit of a dog, and Adobe at last got their act together with Premiere and delivered a high-quality bit of kit for people who do what I do when you need these tools. I often thought about it as my group, my band. After Effects was the guitar player, Speed Grade was the keyboard player. Sounds like it should be a keyboard player. Speed Grade on keyboard. Speed Grade was on keyboards, and Premiere was the drummer who had a bit of work to do, and he came on very nicely. He got a lot better. But certainly for me, anyway, the way I've worked is finding an approach where I want to say something quite serious. The songs I wrote when I was 16, 17, like Into the Valley, Saints Are Coming, songs that are still alive today because they've been recently covered by other bands, and they did good covers of them, I think, were about things that were important to me as a young guy in Scotland, central Scotland, couldn't get jobs. The economic outlook was so bleak in 1976 and 1977. The only available choice to a lot of people in the area I came from was to join the British Army. And a lot of my friends made that choice, and they ended up in Northern Ireland within 2 years in a kind of hell. They were in the Falls Road or East Belfast or West Belfast, and they were in really a cauldron of incredible animosity and trouble, and it changed them, and some of them got badly hurt. So those songs were about something, because these were my friends who had been changed because they allegedly had a choice, and they had no choice whatsoever. It was forced on them, and it was a disaster for most of those young people. So, I wrote songs, that's what Into the Valley was about. So my movies, I didn't want to be frivolous and capricious. I wanted them to have a stylization and have something visual that I love, have a visceral quality, use sound and music in a way that it's not just wallpaper and filling in the gaps. They've actually got something to say built into the narrative. But I wanted them to say something serious and be about things, and that was very important to me. But take them into a place which, entertaining is an interesting word, but that kind of keeps your attention and drives you through. So, as I say, the influence is all there. The comic books, computer games, commercials, promos, graphic novels. For some computer games, I've done some of the action scenes in some games, and I really enjoy doing it. And some of the computer games I really love. I come from Edinburgh. The Rockstar North are based out of there, and a lot of my friends worked on GTA, did a lot of the 3D work on it, and they created some of the characters and modeling, and they've worked with me on some of my films. So it's not something that I've held my nose up as if it was sniffy at. I've never felt that way about pop culture. It's something that I really love, and in all of its form. This is a shot from a film that I'm not allowed to show you today, but you can see it on, I think it's on YouTube now. It's called The Journey. It was a film I made about sex trafficking. I got money from a variety of sources to make it, and we wanted to do something different. We didn't want to do another one of those social realist films about a woman taken from Eastern Europe and enslaved here in the UK and raped 50 times a day and shot like that kind of narrative. We thought it would be interesting to employ all the skills we had developed and do something different. So I worked with a company called Axis Animation in Glasgow, who do a lot of gaming work. And we put our trafficked woman in a container, and the container, she never leaves. The container becomes the inside of her body. It becomes a living, breathing, organic, and crippled sense of her life. And it's brutal stuff to watch, but I think it was very, very powerful. But it's not family friendly, so I was told I couldn't show it to you. This is a guy called Richard Ashcroft, who some of you might recognize. He used to be the singer in The Verve, and he's now gone solo. I do a lot of work with him. I think he's a really interesting guy, and I've always tried to bring a kind of cinematic, graphic world into the collaborations we make, the videos we've done together, and he worked with me on The Journey. I love working with him. He's really an incredible guy, incredibly talented, out there person. But we created an identity. He allowed me to create an identity with him that fitted into the world that I've been trying to create, as you can see. This is the poster from a film, The Somnambulist, which we shot in my garage. And it's based on the testimonies of 15 young men and women who served in Basra in Iraq, who are all dead now. And I fictionalized their story at the point in time of their death, and employed actors to create those characters with me. And I find it profoundly moving, the story, and it was at the point in time where I wanted my work to even have more of a strong polemical feel about it. Let's have a little look at this.
Have you any idea why this is happening? Why two people who have nothing in common would meet?
What are you doing, McDonald? Nothing. Is he nice?
They want back every penny you've borrowed, Alice.
How much you owe?
How much?
Sean, we'd like to make a proposal. We offer you this. £1,000. And this. It opens a safety deposit box. And there is another 11,000.
Which could be yours.
All you have to do is hide.
What do you mean, hide? I'm playing a game. If I can make it till 9 o'clock in the morning, it's all mine.
You hide.
We seek.
Is that?
Just a paranoid.
Have you got any idea what they're going to do to me?
What if the game became more serious? Up the stakes.
You're going to kill me! I don't want to play anymore.
You're late, Sean.
How do you know everything about me?
This kid, he's good.
You want to win? Yes. At any cost.
That was a film called Newtown Killers, and again, that's employed this idea of taking a serious subject. I was working with a charity in Edinburgh which dealt with people whose parents were young adults whose parents were heroin addicts or alcoholics, and so were their grandparents. So they were third generation who were in this crazy world, and they thought they were, to all intents and purposes, socially invisible and had no place in the world around them. So there was a bunch of us were encouraged to go and work and do, as I did film workshops where these young adults told their stories, and it was really quite something to behold. Really talented, fantastic stories, and they have the same dreams, ambitions, and joys in life as every single person in this room. They just really feel that it doesn't have a place anymore, and it certainly does. So I wanted to take a character from that world and put him in a world where bankers who were so atavistic in their kind of sense of who they were in society could degenerate into this kind of weird, barbarous world and use these kids as fodder for hunting. So essentially the metaphor was about people on the fringes of society being so invisible nobody really cares about them. So if they were to disappear, what would it matter? But instead of doing maybe employing the traditional route into that kind of story, which is much more social realist, and we have a fine tradition of that in the United Kingdom, I wanted to employ that other thing that I've been working on, that kind of sense of it's almost multi-platform. The sequence you saw at the very end was created by people who worked on Grand Theft Auto. The idea of the film was that we could create another platform for it as a game, which we're still working on, I might add. And believe it or not, we've just sold the rights for it to be turned into a Bollywood film. I don't know how that's going to work, because it's a very violent film, and probably you're getting the sense that my work is quite violent. I'm not a violent person, so don't worry. But I do believe the world around me is violent, and I feel responsible to use, I feel that I want to use the violence in my work responsibly, and it's got a kind of moral center, but I won't shy away from it. And I'll continue to go down that route. Someone said to me a moment ago, what are you doing next? What are you about to do next? I said, I'm about to do a film about two men parachuted into the Scottish mountains who are dueling for each other's kidney. And he just went, oh. Oh. And I understand that, but I can't change it now. It's too late, you know. So I'm on that train to wherever it is. It's probably going to fall over the edge. Anyway, so Wayland's Song, the film that I've just finished, which premiered last week. I've been working with Adobe now for 10, 12 years, I think, and they've been involved. If you look at the posters for my film, you'll see their logo on every one of them. So I've had a relationship with the company for a very long time now. And with this film, there was an idea mooted that maybe we could take Story Plus, which is in the cloud, create the story, schedule the story, create all the storyboarding within Story Plus, then start our movie, pull it through into Prelude, create templates in SpeedGrade so when we're on set we could bang the templates on, because I was using a Canon C300, which I'll go into the process in more detail in a second, and it looks really milky and flat and practically raw. But you put your templates on it, on set, and you go, wow, that's going to be, when you see those blacks crushed and you see those, that kind of HDR quality there, it's really, really exciting. And then we were going to pull it through Premiere, which I really feel has definitely got its act together, into Audition. After Effects, of course, I've been using forever. And then through SpeedGrade into a DCP. Would it work? So we tried it as an experiment, and it did work. And We had problems along the way with Story because Story Plus wasn't really available to everyone. I think it was free at the time, but Story Plus was just about to come on the market. And when we were making the film, I was speaking to the developers who were based in Mumbai every night about problems I was having. And I was having problems, there was no doubt about it. And some of the problems were because I was using the software badly. And there was other problems that they didn't have an answer for. And what was amazing was the answer would come the next morning. So I don't know if they were working through the night or whatever, but they would find a solution and then we would march on. So we were the kind of guinea pig in many ways for some parts of the cloud, and it was in itself quite exciting. It was a film that was made with a near derisory sum of money, but it was a film that had a massive heart again. It was about something that I felt was important to me. Again, it had the images I wanted to create, and I hope you see a through line from that early stuff I showed you of a certain kind of stylization, backlighting, silhouettes, weird architecture. So, you don't quite know where you are. Low cameras, I like to throw the camera low, and I love wide-angle lenses. As I said, we shot with the C300, which had just come on the market, and we shot with CP2s on that, and it was pretty good. I liked it very much. And I shoot. So you've got 2 or 3 of those cameras on the go. I shoot now myself, and it's only data after all. It's not good for the editor, of course, but who cares about editors? So you just, shoot. Actors don't like it, of course, because, they like to prepare, and that's fair enough, and they need that bit of time. And that's been probably my Achilles heel in the decade that I've been making films, that I find actors very irritating. That you just, because you prepared your camera team and you prepared your sound people and the people do, and you're listening to the scene, you're looking at the scene and thinking, like this, you've got your camera there, so you're thinking, what if I use a low rumble, a little tectonic plate, the sound of something strange rather than the sound of reality, because for God's sake, what's that? So you want to do strange things. And so, and everybody in the team that I work with, and it's tough, you're doing 60 setups a day because we don't have an awful lot of time and an awful lot of money. And you're really trying your best to get through this, and suddenly an actor needs that emotional moment in time to go and think about stuff. And I was never really good with that. That's where the kind of nastier Scottish part of me suddenly appeared. I was going off, but that's a mistake on my part, because they do need more time. I've actually been talking for far too long, I get the feeling, because I can see people are waving torches at me and stuff. But I just want to show you the trailer for the film and probably finish up there. But again, these are the kind of images that, lots of kind of layering and a kind of sense that he's coming from somewhere that's dangerous, and he's come from something very bold. Wayland song, the title of the film, comes from an old Germanic Teutonic myth called Voland's Lieder, and for those of you who can speak German, Lieder, it means song, but it also means sorrow, so there's a kind of nuance there. And it's a story in the parable, it's a story of a man who is a beautiful armourer, who creates this beautiful armour, and he's taken into the court of the king of Scandinavia, who makes him make this beautiful armour for him. And Wayland wants to leave and go back to his home in Germany, and the king of Scandinavia cuts the tendons on his ankles so he can't escape. So it becomes a revenge parable, but essentially it's not about that. If you really analyse that parable, it's about the suffocation of an artist. There was a person who did this beautiful work, but this person wanted them only to do one thing, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room have suffered the indignity of that. So I wanted to create that imagery. So it was inspired by a great German expressionist painter called Anselm Kiefer, and he's a very brave German artist who deals with a lot of German mythology, which has been kind of appropriated in the wrong way in the 20th century by you-know-who. But he's kind of redressed that. And Wayland's song is kind of born from that. And I love that, taking mythology and these kind of evil parables and kind of reapplying them to a modern context. Wayland, in my film, has just come home from Afghanistan, where he's been in hell, Helmand province, in fact, but he's been in hell. And his family is disintegrated. His wife's in a bad way, and his daughter has vanished. So his quest is to find his daughter, but essentially it's not about that. It's about a man searching for his soul, which he's left in the killing fields of the Sangin Valley. So I think there's a trailer. And then again, using this kind of very graphic approach, very soft lighting from the side. The people are living in interior worlds, but there's no light coming into those worlds. All the curtains are closed. People hiding from the truth, I guess, is the metaphor that's at play. There you go.
Dad, help me, please. Help me, please, Dad. Help me, please, Dad.
When did you get back?
I'm looking for Eve. When did you last see her?
A long time ago.
Where is she?
Did you get herself in trouble again?
Maybe.
I mean, if you think that, have you gone to the police?
What the hell was it over there? We're going to hear.
Eating, breathing dogs, being shot at in a country that doesn't deserve you in the first place.
Don't.
Well, we're not going to tell you what he's going to do because that will ruin the film. So, listen, I had so much more I wanted to show you, and but I've warbled on for far too long, so because there's so many other interesting people coming along to talk to you today. So, listen, thanks so much for your time and the interest. And thank you.